All right, sweet. I think we're live. Very good. Hello, everyone. Office hours today, October 1st, Thursday. It's a good time. Yeah, I'm here to answer some questions. People who are actually on the Zoom call always get priority. So feel free to interrupt me and ask questions as we go. And yeah, does anybody on the call right now have questions? All right, well, there are a couple in the Discord that I can try to address here. Oh, there's Lisa. Hey there, Lisa. I know you had a question. Did you want help with that right now? I don't know whether Lisa heard me or not. Lisa, did you want some help with your question right now?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, Kent, I was just getting logged in.
No worries.
Okay, cool. Like that, this is really kind of cool. So I think it's pretty basic because let me just get back to that particular. I think my question really at the beginning of it, there's a comment that says refactor this into the single line of destructuring. And I'm not quite sure what that means when defining the info object. Um, Part two of my question is getting to within the different objects that are in the array of enemies in the destructuring that I did. I think it's line 18 that is referencing that piece.
Okay. So this is in just to make sure that we're clear, and I'll share my screen here. Right here. So you're in the quiz right now. Is that right?
I'm in that yeah, it's in one of the things I was reading through and you're like, destructure this. And I'm like, okay, I love destructuring, but I've never done it with these nested arrays.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty deep. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it is kind of fun to try out. And I'll just paste a link here in the office hours for folks who want to look at this. This is my ES6 workshop. Yeah, this is one of the quizzes. So
I don't know how I stumbled into a quiz.
No, you're all right. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
actually curious, how did you find this workshop? Because I haven't given it in a while.
Well, let me see if I can find, I was just kind of getting started with React fundamentals. And
Oh, right.
so I don't know if it's in one of the deep explanations in there.
Yeah, there was, let's see.
Do you think it might be in there?
How to React. Yeah, this blog post, I think I mentioned my ES6 workshop. Yep, there it is. That might have been where you got it.
I'm just trying to do what you're telling me, read and play.
Yeah, you're getting yourself all super prepared. That's awesome. Yeah, so the point of the exercise is just to show you that destructuring can be nested and to get comfortable with nesting. I actually, a lot of people don't like nested destructuring because they think it's confusing. I think it's just unfamiliar. And if it's properly formatted, then I don't think it's a whole lot more complicated than defining an object. But a lot of people disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. But I probably wouldn't go to this level of destructuring myself in something for real. But let's take a look at what you've got. Here, and actually, I wonder, can I edit your message? Because we can actually make this, put this in what's called a code fence.
Yeah, I was trying to look for that. I'm used to Slack, so I'm feeling really cool and hip here over on.
Yeah, you're good.
What is this?
Yeah, so this is how you make a code fence. Is you do 3 backticks to start and 3 backticks to close it, and then you put everything in between. That'll make it all formatted nice and stuff.
I can try and edit that then. Let's see. Because I think I can edit my own message.
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Okay. Now, if I could just find the code review.
Yeah, you're okay. So while you're working on that, or you don't need to worry about it. You can fix it later or something. I can make sense of this.
Okay.
So let's just go one by one, each one of these things. So what you have right here is totally cool. That you got the title all right. Now the protagonist name is going to be coming off of the info object and protagonist and then name. and we alias it to protagonist name. So you got that alias properly. Now you're doing another destructuring of the protagonist, and that's totally cool. You can do that. I probably wouldn't do it that way, but you can. So we'll stick with that. And we call it enemy, but it comes off of the third enemy. And so that's where things are slipping up right here is you
Right.
have the enemies, you're
Uh-huh.
destructuring the array, but you're grabbing the first one and you
Okay.
need at index 4. So you add a couple of commas right there, and that should get you these. But
A
then,
couple of commas, you said?
yeah, to skip each index. So you need to grab the fourth or index 3. And so you need 1 comma for index 0. Here, actually, it might be easier if I do this. So you'd say, and here's enemy 0, and then
Sorry, Kent. My family's
yeah, you're good.
cooking flourless chocolate cakes, so I'm gonna get out of their way.
Yeah, you're good. No worries. If you need to leave for a second, just let me know.
No. They're good. They're just trying to hear over each other, and I was in the way. So, okay, I'm quiet now.
You're good. No worries. I've got 4 kids. I know what life's like. So yeah, if we were to destructure the whole array, then we'd get enemy 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to get enemy at 3. And so that's the one that we want, but we want to call it enemy. So we'll just do that. But then we don't need enemy 0, 1, or 2, or even 4. So let's get rid of 4. And then to get rid of 2, we could just do this, except now that turned our enemy into enemy 2, right? Because of the way that we're destructuring. We're saying, we
Oh,
want to pluck off each one. And so instead what we can do is we just remove the variable name or the declaration, and then it just says, oh, okay, I'm just going to skip this one, and we'll move on to the next. So that is what we need to do to get the third enemy for this one. Does that make sense?
okay. That makes total sense. And then what you were saying earlier is within this protagonist key, I can throw these other things in that object.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So this could be this could become this. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes much better sense. I hadn't gotten to the refactoring part of what I was trying
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I couldn't get to that third person. But then
Yeah.
that info object up top, just like that's defining it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yep.
there's no destructuring there.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So this would be the object definition, and this is shoot, what do they call it? It's a object destructuring pattern, or let's I can't remember what it's called.
I think I
Yeah.
thought it was just object destructure.
Here, let me come down here to the solution. Let's not look too closely at this. We're not done yet, but I just want to get what this is called. Here, we'll just comment that out. So this object right here is called an object pattern. That's what that's called.
Okay.
And then this one is an object or object expression. Yeah.
Expression. Okay.
So if you're
That's
ever
pretty
like
cool.
trying to, you see some syntax and you're like, I don't know what that is, you can come to astexplorer.net and paste in the code, and it'll give you something you can Google for, because it's kind of hard to
Yes.
Google for syntax.
Yep, I am going to actually bookmark that. This was super helpful. And I also like Once Upon a Time was one of the few shows I've ever watched. So that brought me back in time.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
My wife and I were pretty into it at the time I made this workshop. So yeah, coming up with examples can sometimes be a challenge.
I can appreciate that. Well, thank you very much, Kent. I really appreciated that explanation. I know it's like pretty basic and
No, this is not I wouldn't consider this basic, and I'm happy to help. I'm not done yet, actually. If you
okay.
Just one other thing here.
Yeah.
So on these next two, what we're doing here is we're also destructuring enemies again, and we're grabbing the first index again. So just like in this one, we're skipping, or we're not skipping the indexes. So this is going to destructure the enemy title off of the first enemy. So if you wanted to do that, you'd add a couple commas in here. But we don't actually need the enemy binding at all. There's no use of the enemy variable. In the original, the only reason we created the enemy variable was so that we could grab these two things off. And so what we can do instead is I'm just going to take that and replace the enemy. And then because this is the same object, I'm also going to get the enemy name, and we'll just add that to our destructuring. And so
Oh my
this,
God.
that whole protagonist, all of these can be in just a single line of destructuring there.
That makes me very happy.
Is that cool?
That is
Yeah,
so cool.
it's kind of interesting. Like I said, I probably wouldn't do this, especially this. Like this is the final solution here.
Okay.
So there's another way that we can do this that is arguably better. So when I'm destructuring an array, if I need to skip indexes, I think it's really annoying to have to count those. Okay, so that's index 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're at index 3. So I think that's kind of confusing. So you can actually destructure an array like an object, because an array is an object. And so you could say, destructure this like an object, and I want the third property, or sorry, the property at 3, the property named 3, and that'll do the same thing. So you're just saying, oh,
Ooh.
grab me the third one. You don't have to do any of that skipping stuff.
Wow. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, that does. That makes
Cool.
really nice sense.
Very good. Well, thanks for asking. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, well, I'm just trying to get started here. I actually will hear you next week at React Summit. I think you're gonna
Oh,
talk
nice.
there. So I will look forward to that as well.
Yeah, that'll be
We won't be in Amsterdam though, will we?
no, I'm really sad about that. Yeah, this whole COVID thing has just really messed up a lot of the things I do for fun, as well as like destroyed a lot of
Mhm.
people's livelihoods. And so
Oh,
I feel bad complaining. It's been a lot
I
worse for other people. It's really bad.
yeah, I'm in a similar position, but really grateful to have crossed paths with you, Kent. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you,
Yep.
Lisa.
Okay, you be well. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the call have any questions? If not, I am happy to just go through a couple of the questions we have in Discord. Okay, cool. So let's see. I think right around here is where we get started. So Nick, I remember seeing this message, but I gotta get myself back up to speed. I feel like, yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, okay. So this is the third time we're talking about this, actually. This is synchronizing state versus deriving state. And I can't remember if Nick was the one who asked this originally or not, but I have this blog post where I talk about how important it is to avoid synchronizing state, because it just leaves you in a world of failed synchronization hurt. And so we avoid it. But there are some legit situations where that might be useful. So let me just read through this really quick. Okay, yeah. Very nice. Thank you for spending all this time. I don't know if Nick is watching right now, but thank you for spending the time making such a nice code sandbox. Okay, so here's our synchronized state. We've got this username thing from context that's being managed here. Wow, like very thorough. Okay, so we're grabbing that context. This is our sync name, and then we're gonna initialize some local state to that value. And whenever our value is updated, we're going to update the sync name. Update sync name. Where's that? Oh, that's coming from an action. Oh, that's interesting. How does that work? Update sync name. Set name. Oh, you passed set name. Okay. Okay, and then we use use memo for is disabled, so that if the local name is the same as the context value, then they will disable the submit button. Okay, so this was the original solution, and this is where I was saying, that's not great. You want to maybe avoid that. because like you just have to start asking yourself questions like, okay, so what happens if the context value were to change? Do I need to update the local state value, or like, uh, especially think about this as like, I just landed on this form and I'm not really editing anything. And then the context value changes because like, some server update or something. And now my values in the inputs are going to be my local state is going to be different from the context state. And so now my buttons are going to be enabled to save it to what the state was before that update happened. So there's so many things you have to worry about. And like maybe that's what you want. Like, it just really depends. Um, but yeah, there are a bunch of things you have to worry about when you start synchronizing state, which is why I like to avoid it when possible. So anyway, that's the first example. And then without synchronizing state, and this is using an idea Nick got from React Fundamentals, only providing on-change handler and leaving the input unmanaged. So check disabled. Oh, interesting. Okay, so whenever there's a change is when we check whether it should be disabled. So this one seems to make sense. The challenge with this one is, let's say that the context value updates, then we won't be able to know whether or not it should be disabled until the user changes something, which might be okay. That this is where we get into trade-offs, right? Like which one of these not great things do you want to deal with? Yeah, and this, like, it seems like a pretty reasonable solution. Um, Potentially, I wouldn't call this a like a anti-pattern or anything like that. It's just another way to do it that comes with its own set of trade-offs. Yeah, you just have to think about, okay, so if I'm trying to determine some state, um, yeah, like where I need to manage some derived state. Like really, it is derived, and the value is derived by what the value of the input is relative to the value of context at a given time. So if you're trying to manage that state yourself, you have to think about all of the situations in which any of those values could change and manage those. And right now, all that this is dealing with is when the local managed state changes. So we technically do still have locally managed state that's synchronized to the context value. Just so happens that that state lives in a variable called disabled. And actually the input itself, well, yeah, that's all that really is relevant here. So we are still synchronizing state, but we're only doing it when the input value changes. We're not handling it for when the context value changes. And that may or may not be what you want. Just really, yeah, it's a challenging thing there. Okay, so without sync state multiple, so we're managing disabled. I don't know what use multi is. I see. So it's like this solution, except we're managing multiple fields or multiple inputs. So it's expanding on that original idea. And then it's using, or it's just creating a single use disabled based on whether any of the disabled values are true. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I think I've talked enough about this. It comes down to trade-offs and thinking about um, I can change my local version of this, and I can change the context version of this. And when those two things change, there's going to be something that falls out of sync. Do I want to keep them in sync? And what does that mean for my end user? I think probably a better experience would be probably to um, hmm probably to actually synchronize the state like this first one. But then if it falls out of, if then you want to track the context value. And if that value changes, then have like a little thing that pops up that says, you're looking at stale data or something, and click to update. I don't know, really, like at this point, it's a matter of what are you actually building? Let's talk about the trade-offs. But hopefully we've explored the trade-offs enough that you can make those kinds of decisions for yourself. So cool, that's fun. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, office hours is a thing that I do, and it's fun, and you can join us twice weekly, in case you've never heard of office hours before. Okay, cool. So I had a couple questions elsewhere in the Discord that I noticed, and I'm gonna see if we can talk about this. Okay, yeah. So Anarch, I'm not sure how to say your name, I'm sorry, but wondering here, yeah, noticed a couple months back, I put up some videos on YouTube, which you can go watch. I was live streaming twin.macro, which is a Tailwind macro. It's kind of interesting. Hold on just a second. I just got a text from my wife, and I care about her more than I care about you. No offense. I can deal with this later though. So I'm going to put my phone down like this so I don't forget. So yeah, curious on your opinion of using something like Twin Macro, Tailwind, Stitches Dev. I don't know what Stitches Dev is, so I'll have to pull that up. Modern styling library. Yeah, doesn't look different enough to win me over or anything, but interesting. Or CSS and JS as a whole in terms of productivity and maintainability. So I'll tell you my history in the CSS and JS thing. I was using CSS modules for a long time and thought it was amazing. And then I saw the inline styles talk from, or the CSS and JS talk from Christopher Shadow. Just thought that was the bomb. And then when styled components came out, I was like, this is great, except I don't like using, oh, actually, no, this is before styled components came out. I discovered Aphrodite, which is out of Khan Academy. And it was awesome. I loved it. I got PayPal on it. It was definitely an upgrade. But then we ran into some limitations of Aphrodite and stuff. It was had some problems, and styled components came out, and I was in the middle of working on a big change to the transfer page. So if you want to send money to people or something, that page, and kind of necessitated a better styling solution. And so in the process of doing that, I was deciding whether I should use styled components, and I decided against it because I didn't like using. Actually, the biggest reason was at the time it was a very, very large library. It was like bigger than React. So I was like, no, we can't do this. And I found Glamour, which is a CSS and JS library similar to Aphrodite. And I thought, hey, Glamour is cool, but I like styled components API. So let me switch over to Glamour and I'll make my own styled components API like thing. And then, and I created Glamorous, and it was basically like styled components, except much smaller, faster, and using objects instead of strings. So that's kind of where I landed. And then eventually, I actually wrote a blog post about what happened with Glamorous. It was whoops. Yeah, favor progress over pride in open source, where I talked about how I deprecated Glamorous. I think, nope, I guess I didn't ever write a blog post about it. So yeah, it's favor pride over progress in open source. Kind of an interesting one for you. So I'll just paste that right there. So yeah, and then now I'm using Emotion, and that's my flavor that I've been using for years. I love it. It's awesome. Really, really happy with Emotion as a CSS and JS library. So then Tailwind comes out, and I am thinking, hey, Tailwind is awesome, and it really is. And so I investigated it for the Bookshelf app for Epic React, and decided against it just because it would require a great amount of time to explain it and teach it. I just decided and on top of that, there were just so many different edge cases that I needed to style, especially that it was just too much extra stuff I didn't want to deal with. So it seems like a really great solution. I know that Epic React.dev, the platform itself, is using Tailwind, and they seem to really like it. The engineers who are using it. So yeah, that's all that I have to say about it. I'm still a major, huge fan of Emotion, and I like the CSS prop a lot. And if you want to see how I use it, then yeah, the Bookshelf app for Epic React is the way. So yeah. Okay, cool. Moving on to the next. And again, anybody who's in the call can interrupt me at any time. You get priority over these Discord questions. So, okay, so the question was, why did I put set item in a use effect rather than moving that into the handle change? That's a great question, Adrian. So let me, let's see. I think this is in the hooks, React hooks. Here, and actually, let's just do this. I'll just pull this up in my editor right here. Bum, bum. I think this is right here. Okay, so why didn't we just do it this way? So we totally can do it this way. This works just fine. Sorry, let me back it up. Whoa. And explain what's going on here. So we have this greeting component, and it just renders a form, and you type a value into the form, and that gets updated in local storage. We have this use effect to synchronize the state of the world with the state of our app. Okay, so the question is, why do we need a use effect here? Why can't we just do a put that in there and be done with it? And we totally can, and this will work exactly like the other one for all intents and purposes. There are a couple of differences. For one, this is going to run synchronously, and so it's actually going to block the browser from painting as a result of this state change. And so if this code is expensive, then the user will not see the effects of this state change until after this code runs. That is very trivial in this scenario. I want to make that clear. That's not why I'm not doing it this way. Performance is a non-issue here, but that is a something to consider. Another reason that I prefer use effect for anything that's a side effect is that if I decided to have another function here, come on, function uppercase name, and then I say set name to name dot to uppercase. Okay, and then we call that somewhere. Now I have to call this here again. Okay, but if I just stuck with the use effect, here, actually, let me grab that. And we'll back it up and then paste it right there. So if I do a use effect, then I can just do that, and it works fine because the name gets updated and it gets set into local storage. And so I vastly prefer putting all of my side effect stuff inside of a use effect for that exact reason, because otherwise you have to start thinking, okay, well, now instead of calling set name, I'm going to call set name and update local storage or something like that. So yeah, that's the reason. Great question. Thank you for asking. I hope that you see this because I'm not sure if you're watching. So here, actually, I'm going to mention, grab that, stick that here. Just answered your question. Watch the YouTube live stream later. And I also answered Nick. Oh, sweet. And Nick is watching. Very good. And let me just mention this other individual that I answered earlier as well. Sorry, I don't want them to miss out. Answered your question in the live stream just now. Check YouTube later. Okay, cool. So moving on, unless anybody has questions in here, anybody? Okay, cool. Brian is asking a question around the sandbox counter. I saw this earlier. Let me just read this. How to turn it into a debouncer for a text box. I know how to make it work, and I kind of see why, but okay, and Nick answered, so let me see what Nick said about this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is basically, yeah, Nick is correct. Let me see if I can explain it to everybody here just in case. So here's the attempt number one, doesn't work. We are calling a function, or we are creating a function that when called will accept a term, and then it calls debounce. What this is going to do is create a function that when called will not call the inner function for 300 milliseconds. So this actually performs no action other than creating a function. It's not even returning that function. So yeah, this won't work at all because calling debounce will not say that what it looks like you kind of are wanting to do here, or what you think, the way you think this works is you kind of think that this works like a set timeout. That's kind of what yeah, so you're basically, what you think is happening is that the inner function is going to get called after 300 milliseconds, and that's not the case. You're just creating a function that when called, it will wait 300 milliseconds between calls before it calls the inner function. Okay, so that's what debounce does, is it allows you to call a function many, many times, and it won't actually call the inner function until it's been 300 milliseconds or however long you want in here. So anyway, that's what's going on there. Doesn't work number two is very similar, except this one is actually calling it, so that makes sense. And so then it's going to wait for 300 milliseconds. But the problem with this one is that so the purpose of debounce is to be able to call a function many, many times, and it only calls it once. So like you can call it 100 times, but it will only call it once after 300 milliseconds since the last call. So if you call it once, wait 500 milliseconds, and then call it again, you should get 2 calls. But if you call it once and wait 200 milliseconds and then call it again, you should only get 1 call. So what's happening here is we're calling debounce to create a function that will only get called after 300 milliseconds. And then we're calling that. And then if this function gets called again, we're going to create a brand new function, completely new function, and we're going to call it immediately to say, hey, after 300 milliseconds, then call this. And so that's why you're seeing it getting called both times, even though you have a debounce. This is basically like a set timeout. Is effect what this how this effectively operates, because you need to maintain the what's the word I'm looking for, integrity of the function. You need it to be the same function here as it's implemented right here. This function right here needs to remain the same for this ID to get cleared out. So anyway, so the reason that this one works is because this debounce search is going to be that function that you want to have called, and then you call it here. So here's where things get a little bit tricky. So we're going to take it a step further. What actually works almost. And let me see if I can come up with the scenario that is not going to work. Yeah, I think I might need to get a counter. Let me just grab this. Okay, so we're gonna grab the counter stuff here. And I'm going to increase the time to 5 seconds. And I'm forking now. Here, cool. And so now if I type something in here, we'll wait 5 seconds, and then it should update that that H1 above. Okay, it does. So then if I just do a bunch here, and then I click on this, and then I do here, click on that, you'll notice that it actually, you saw that update, and then it updated again. What's happening is we actually have almost the same problem that we have here. Let me make sure it's clear. So we can reduce this down to 2 seconds. Okay. We just should make sure that everybody can follow what's going on. So if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I type that really quickly, and so I should only get 1 update. But if I say 6, 7, click, and then 8, whatever. Yeah. Did you see? Okay, so it updated for the 6, 7, and then I clicked, and then, or sorry, I typed 6, 7, then I clicked the count, and then typed 9 and 0. Um, but it should have only done one update because that was debounce for 2 seconds, and I didn't wait 2 seconds before continuing to type. So hopefully that is sort of clear. This is a little bit hard to explain and make it visual. Um, but basically what's happening is when you call, anytime you call debounce, you're making a new function that when called will wait for X number of seconds before calling the inner function. That's like the key idea here. So if you made 2 of these, so debounce search and debounce search 1, and then I called debounce search and then debounce search 1, then these would, and this is actually not going to be good. We don't want to do that. But if I called them, calling the first is not going to make an impact on the second. Like they are completely independent. And so that's actually what's happening here, because anytime we trigger a re-render, we're actually going to get a brand new function created right here. Okay. So that means that because these are separate functions, they're not going to be waiting for the same amount of time. They're on different timers. They're totally different IDs. In fact, we can visualize this if we do a console log making a debounce. So let's refresh that. So we're making a debounce. We actually got it twice, which surprised. Oh, wait. That's surprised. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, we're in strict mode. That does not surprise me. Okay, so what's happening? The reason that we're getting it twice is because in strict mode, React actually renders your component twice. It calls the render function twice. And if you want to learn more about that, then learn about how to enable strict mode. So that's fun. But I'm guessing that Brian knew. This is Brian's question, right? I just forgot. I think it's Brian. Yeah. So I'm guessing Brian knew that because Brian had strict mode enabled. So anyway, we're getting 2 created right there. Here, let's turn off strict mode just so that this is more clear. There we go. So we're making 1. And so then when I click on this, we're going to make a new one. And when I type in here, once that finally updates, we're going to make a new one. So every time we render, we're making a new debounce. And because it's not the same, they're not going to be operating on the same timer. See, we're going to call clear timeout on a different ID. We're going to call set timeout and get a different ID out of it. So these are operating on completely different timers because they're different closures, different functions. So the way that we solve this is we can say react.memo, or sorry, use memo, because we want to memoize this callback. And luckily for us, set search is a stable function, but we can include it in our dependency array. No big deal, either way. And so this should result in only having 1 debounce for the lifetime of this component, which it does. And so if we refresh here and I click, boom, 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 we are not making any more debounce functions. We just have the one that we have. And so now if I say, let's just delete this, and I say 1, 2, click, and then 3, 4, we should only get 1 update. Boom, there it is. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And some of you might be thinking now, wait a second, I thought with functions, we use callback. And you would be right, except that we're not trying to, we technically are trying to create a callback, but we don't want to make we don't want to create a function that we call to go get the debounce. We actually want this code to run during our render function, because what we want to get back is what we get back from debounce, from that debounce call. So that's why we're using use memo rather than use callback in this case. And I actually just, the whole reason why this was like fresh on my mind recently is because I was writing a blog post about one legit use case for ignoring a dependency array. And then I realized later that it totally was not. And it was a function very similar to this. It was for debounce purposes. Let me see if I can find it, because I actually linked to the commit. Let's see. legit, or from Kent CDOD's legit. And let's look for latest. Here we go. So this was the commit where I fixed things up. So I was using React use callback and just passing the call to the debounce function and then ignoring the array because the mutate function was stable. And so I was like, this is fine. And technically it actually does work. And the only reason it works is because we are creating brand new debounce functions every time, but we're only using the first one that came back because we have an array. So we ignore the rest of them. We don't care because mutate is stable. So it ends up working out. But then I realized, hey, wait a second, because mutate is stable, then we'll just put mutate there. Who cares? So just put mutate. But I intuitively thought use callback made sense. And then I realized, oh, wait, no, this is supposed to be a use memo because I want this debounce function called during render so I could get the actual debounce mutate. So anyway, fun stuff, interesting. Hopefully that was fun. I'll just grab a link to this so you can all dive into that if you want to, and I'll make a link to this. Here, let me. What actually works, and then we'll put this back to what Brian had. Doesn't work 3. There we go. That'll do it. Okay, let me paste this in our Discord chat and move on. Any questions from those of you in the room right now? Good. Okay, cool. For building a scalable React web app that is dealing with both business to customer or consumer and custom business to business, we should go with Next Framework or Blitz or something else. Well, if you can wait, Remix is coming soon, and it's going to be in beta. You're going to be on the bleeding edge, and you are the one who's bleeding when you're on the bleeding edge. But my goodness, I am really impressed by Remix. So just like keep that in mind. I am waiting for Remix to do a couple of things before I do a couple of things. Remix is amazing. So give this a look. They are just doing awesome work. And I just got an email yesterday saying that on the 28th is when of October is when the first beta is going to be released. It is going to be paid software, so it's different from like Next or whatever. You pay for a license, but it is going to be so good. So if you don't want to do that, you don't want to wait, you don't want to pay, whatever, and you're choosing between these two, I've never tried Blitz, so I can't give you a legit idea of what I feel about it because I haven't actually tried it. But I have tried Next. It was a long time ago, and I liked it. It was fine. A lot of people really seem to like it a lot. And so, yeah, I would probably go with Next. If I had to choose right now and I couldn't wait or spend any time deciding or whatever, I would go with Next. So hopefully that helps. Okay. If you wanted to grab dispatch only, oh, right, yeah, Nick was just commenting. Very good. Victor is wondering, I have a question about testing components which use context within them. I found that each time for testing, I need to stop reading these out loud. You can read it unless you can't see. I want to be accessible, but it's hard for me to read it and actually understand it at the same time for some reason. So sorry. Yeah, Victor. So great question. There is a more convenient approach, and that convenient approach is to create your own custom render function, which every application should have. So let me find React Testing Library setup, custom render right here. That's what you want to do. And I can show you an actual real world example of one of these in the Bookshelf app. If we go to app test utils, right here is the custom render for the app test utils. or for the Bookshelf app. So give that a look. And if you are going through Epic React Dev, which I believe I saw the rocket, so I think you are, then you will build that with me in Build React Applications. So have fun with that. It's going to be great. Definitely that one's toward the end when we're adding tests and stuff. You can skip to it if you want to. Would not recommend it, but you can. And we talk about it in depth in the Testing React Apps workshop as well. So that's coming. CSS utility approach like Tailwind gives you a lot of benefits of CSS and JS. Yeah, I think that's fair. One thing that kind of freaks me out is the purge CSS thing. Just feels like it's so easy to get that wrong. I've seen it be gotten wrong, and it's devastating when that happens. So I don't like that it limits my ability to be dynamic. And that's one of the things I really like about CSS and JS is that it allows me to be super dynamic. Now, that said, I know that there's like CSS variables and CSS custom properties and things that I haven't researched much myself, which can give you lots of the benefits of CSS in JS and dynamicism, if that's a word. I don't the dynamic abilities without the runtime overhead as well. So there's that. But yeah, perf has never really been a problem for my apps like at PayPal or my anywhere else. So I know that it can be a problem, but yeah, I've never experienced a problem with performance. So that's why it doesn't bother me. Emotion's really fast. Disabling a button. Yeah, it's tricky, man. Synchronizing state. You do not want to get into that. Okay. Link to the CSS and JS. Yep, that is the one. Wait a second. No, that's not the one. Let me find it. No, shoot. Angular, JS, CSS, and JS. Can't see dots. When I saw it, I was doing Angular JS, and so I blogged, and I didn't ever move this one over because, yeah, it's my old thing. But you can read this old blog post that I made at the time. But this, I am sure I linked to the talk, the slides. Oh, maybe I never, no, I know the talk is somewhere. But yeah, here are the slides for the original talk. And Viju, how do you spell that? VJEUX, React, CSS, and JS talk. Let's see if we can find, yeah, here it is. This is the one, the original OG CSS and JS. This is what made CSS and JS a thing. Yeah, Christopher is a great person. Okay, cool. Good. If I use effect that's triggering other use effects, is that something wrong with the design of the code? In other words, yeah, good question. So I actually blogged about this recently, or related to your question. I have a couple of thoughts. So yeah, miss about use effect right here. And in here, I talk about, nope, not that one. It is one giant use effect. Don't do it. That's basically what I'm saying. So yeah, and you can take a look at that. But to take it a step further on what your question's actually asking, or an assumption that your question is making, the assumption is that you have one use effect that depends on another one. That seems wrong to me. That probably is not a good thing. I can't think of a situation that I've run into where I had one use effect impacting another one, because use effects are intended for synchronizing the state of the world with the state of our app. Now, I suppose I could see a situation where I subscribe to some sort of polling mechanism or something, and that will trigger an update of state, and then I'll have another use effect that relies on that state, and that's probably okay. Yeah, that's probably fine. I don't know. I'd have to see an actual situation and be able to see whether it makes sense to combine them. I would, in general, just recommend separating by concern rather than separating just for the sake of it. So if they are the same concern, then put them together in the same use effect. If they are different concerns, they just happen, one happens to rely on the data that this other one updates, then yeah, totally, it's totally fine. And in fact, we definitely, yeah, there are plenty of situations where we do this. Let me see. I bet I can find a situation where I'm sort of indirectly doing this inside the Bookshelf app. So let me find all the use effects in the Bookshelf app. No, probably not the DevTools. Probably not that one, but we'll check. No way. Boy, I'm really leveraging React Query. We are not using use effect a whole lot in the Bookshelf app. What we do in the exercises and stuff, we just get rid of them all when we bring in React Query. Use effect. So this one does not have that relationship. This one doesn't have any dependencies. This one, yeah, that one also is not the case. So I don't have a situation like that, but I can definitely see a situation where that could be useful, where you have some query, and then you get back some data, and then you have a use effect that relies on that data changing, and it says, okay, if that data changes, then let's go update local storage or something, as my canonical use effect example. So I can see how that could be a useful situation, and I wouldn't just say, nope, that is a bad idea on the face of it. And King Daro comes in with probably very insightful comments. Also, yeah, very insightful comments. Thank you, King Daro. Thumbs up. Yeah, 2-for-1 special. Nice. Useref. So yes, you could use useref. The difference between, so we're talking about, where'd that code sandbox go? This one. So yeah, coming back to this one. Sorry, it's kind of hard to track comments and stuff and keep it all at once. So yeah, you could use useref instead. The difference between this and a useref, here, I'll just add it. Why not? What works but could be improved. Const works but equals React use ref, and it'd just be this thing. And then if we switch this, then we should see that this works. I can do 1, 2, oh wait, then we've got to do, let's just destructure this current. There we go. So then we go 1 and then 1, 2, and then 2, 3, 4, and we only get one update, one state update. So it works, but it could be improved. And what works but still is but isn't great. So I'll show you this, and then maybe why that other one could be improved will make sense. So here we'll say our works but lazy ref equals React use ref. And then we can say if not works but lazy ref dot current. Let's do let works but lazy equals, or ref dot current equals, then we'll do the debounce nonsense here and assign this to that. And then works but lazy will work as well. So then we say snap. Works but lazy, works but lazy. Hold on a second. What do I miss? Current. Oh, that's weird. That should, maybe we have a hot reloading problem. Yeah. This should totally work. I'm not sure why it's not. Let me, 1 second. Anybody know? Yeah, what is going on? This should absolutely work. So what should happen here is works but lazy ref gives me an object that has a current. That current should be undefined because I haven't defined anything here. Then I assign it. And then I say works but lazy should be the thing that I just made. but then we're getting it that it's not a function. Huh. I'm not sure why that's why that is not working. What should work, but isn't great anyway, so whatever. we're gonna go with that. Okay, so let me explain why this one is not a great idea. The reason is, or why it's not as nice as the use memo solution. The reason is that we're calling this function every render, so we're ignoring them. Like we're ignoring the calls. We only care about the first one, but we are calling it every render, so it's a waste. So I would rather just do use memo. That's what the intent or the purpose of use memo. Excuse me, what use memo is for. This should totally work. I'm not sure why it's not. But yeah, this totally works. That works. But I prefer this. And honestly, like there's just because you're creating a debounce function is like, who cares? Honestly, nobody cares. It's super fast. It won't make a difference. So you're probably just as good from a performance perspective either way. In fact, like here we're calling into a function. We're still creating a function every render. So it's not really that different performance-wise. But yeah, if I were building this today, which actually if I did build something exactly like this, this is my end solution. But yeah, thanks for that. Is undefined after re-render. Oh, right, you figured it out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This, what works, but isn't great. We're just gonna do const that. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so now we have this. 1, 2, click, 3, 4, and we get 1. So those are roughly equivalent, those two. So yeah, honestly, all three of these are basically equivalent. You just choose the one that you like most. So anyway, that's fun. I'm gonna just paste that right there. And we'll move on. This does get recorded, yeah. So feel free to go to sleep. 5 a.m., go to sleep, man, or gal, person. Watch this later. Yeah, this will totally be available later at the same URL on YouTube. I don't know if you're in the Zoom or not. Okay, cool. So great question. Thanks for that. And that is also, yeah, that's also true, King Daro. If we had some dependencies, then yeah, we'd be in a world of hurt. Pointing up to that, this. Yeah, doing the job of use memo. Very good. I should read King Daro's comments first. That was also a very good point. State batching, safe to use in production. Your answer is right there. No, it's not safe to use in production. If it says unstable, don't do it. Avoid it. Now, if a library is doing it, then like maybe, but probably not still. Yeah, there's not any stable official way to batch state updates. If it's not in the docs, then it's unlikely to be supported in the long term. So I wouldn't recommend doing anything that's it needs to be in the docs and not have the unstable prefix. And then you should feel safe to use it in production. That said, I was using context like way before they said it was safe to use in production. So okay, you're welcome, Nicholas. A legit case where I have 6 effects cascading off one another. Wow, it's probably fine. Assigning refs during render is not safe. Yes, that is also true. That said, they do it in the, or let's see, it's react.js.org/hooks. If you look at the hooks fac, .current, there is a lazy Yeah, so right here, um, oh yeah, those stinkers, that sort of works. Yeah, so they have this. This is basically a lazy initialization. If you call get observer in render, then you're doing the same thing. I guess they didn't want to show you that because they don't want you to assign during render. But that, like, if you needed to call get observer within the render, then yeah, that I guess you probably wouldn't. Maybe in a use effect is where you'd call that. I don't know. Probably not though, because then you'd have to memorize this. What a nightmare that would be. So yeah, they don't show the example, but yes, they do have an example where you probably would be doing lazy initialization within the render, even in with concurrent mode. The reason that this wouldn't be a problem though is because with concurrent mode, they can call your render function, they get your React elements back, and all of your hooks are called and everything. And that call of your function is supposed to be idempotent, which means that it can call it infinity times and it shouldn't make a difference. It's not like a pure function, but it's like partway to a pure function. So yeah, they can call it, but they may not actually update the DOM or commit the changes based on that call, and they may call it again. And so if you're doing assigning ref during render, then you could actually assign it, and then they don't actually update the DOM. And then the next time you come around, things might be different at that time, and you don't assign it when you actually should or whatever. So that's why they say don't assign refs during render. But it's probably okay for this type of assignment where you're saying, hey, I just want to create this thing. I just want to create it once. I just need it created once. And it needs to happen during render. So this is the type of thing that could happen during render. And our example earlier is the type of thing that could happen during render as well. But yeah, you typically don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Just avoid that. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for your help, friends. Just about ready to wrap it up. Yeah, actually, I am ready to wrap it up. That was fun. Thanks for hanging out, friends. Yeah, I think unless anybody has last minute questions, okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. So thanks for hanging out with me. So we've got next office hours is on Monday, 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. With daylight savings coming up, that change will be or that time will be unchanged, but my time zone will change. So it'll be whatever Mountain Time is, it will be at 9:30, whatever Mountain Time is, daylight savings or not. So it's kind of annoying. I hate it, but that's what our world is, and I just want to do 9:30 every day. So every Monday. So yep, look forward to that. Also, Epic React is still doing stuff. We're still grabbing, or we've still got a 30% discount. Oh, right, I'm logged in. Let's get the unlogged in version. So yeah, 30% discount is happening right now, and it's awesome. Go take a look. Tell your boss to buy it for your team because teams care about this sort of thing. Yeah, it's awesome. And if you're like, what the heck is this? Then watch the tour because it is much more than you think it is. It's really hard to explain or to like summarize in writing, but it's awesome. And if you're curious, then you can join the Discord and ask people like, what do you think? And they're all going to be like, it's amazing, because it is. It's good. All right, that was fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all in the future at a later time. And yeah, peace out. Thanks. Goodbye.